First of all, you're amazing. Part of what I'm doing is for women with breast cancer, with cancer, because I had breast cancer that metastasized to my brain.
Hmm.
2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and then 2021, brain tumor. And then in 2023, I fasted for 67 days. And now it's the 10th day of integration. Initially, when I found you, which was a long time ago, I just thought, this guy's awesome. And then you had the most popular course at Harvard. Remember?
I remember that. Yeah.
It's all online, and I give it to lots of people because it's one
Hmm.
of the best things for free that someone can have. Talked about the most beautiful things. You also talked about what is happiness, right? What is happiness? And you referenced the student that if the student saw you unhappy, then that was going to be a problem. And it doesn't mean that you're walking around happy all the time. That's not happiness.
Exactly.
So that being said, there's a lot to talk about in 15 minutes, especially knowing the demographic and what's involved with having cancer.
Hmm.
But I truly believe being happy is part of the treatment process, among other things.
You don't have to be happy. It helps to be happy. Uh, Also, okay to be fearful as long as you're courageous, because courage is not about not having fear. It's about having fear and going ahead anyway. There's very interesting research that looks at happiness across people's lives. And basically, what it shows, and again, there's always, of course, the shortcoming of looking at large groups of people. There are so many exceptions, but on average, it shows that essentially in our 20s, we're somewhere here, and then we go down, and then we begin to go up in our late 40s or early 50s, and then we become happier and happier. So they've called this the U shape. And the interesting question is why? Why do we see this pattern? And the answer is that as we age, we become more accepting, more embracing of shortcomings, for example, of imperfections, of limitations. And as we become more accepting, more embracing of these, paradoxically, our happiness levels go up. When we talk about fear or anxiety or sadness or frustration, these are natural human emotions. The best that we can do is to accept and embrace them. There's a beautiful poem by Rumi, who's
Yeah.
a Syrian slash Lebanese slash Sufi poet. And the poem was written something like 800 years ago, and it's called The Guest House. And in the poem, Rumi talks about how we need to invite in painful emotions, difficult thoughts, and invite them in, bring them in as if they are envoys, guests from the beyond. Now, whether they are from the beyond or not, I don't know. That's above my pay grade. But what I do know is that when we are more accepting and embracing of our emotions and thoughts, all of them, when we do not discriminate, then we're in a much better place, psychologically, emotionally, and therefore physically, because mind and body are connected.
Beautiful. Thank you, Professor. And when someone has a diagnosis like cancer, perhaps it's stage one, stage two, stage three, stage four, how does one maintain that level of acceptance, knowing that there is a demise in the ahead, perhaps, or a treatment, or fill in the blank?
No, there is the thing about acceptance. I mean, true acceptance is also learning to accept when we do not accept. So true acceptance also is not about saying, okay, so I'm going to accept my fear right now so that I don't have fear, or I'm going to accept my my anger so that I don't feel angry. True acceptance is true acceptance. And if you continue to be angry when you accept, then continue to be angry. And if you reject that anger, then it's okay to accept that rejection. It's about being, in a sense, it's surrendering to whatever emotion emerges, to whatever feeling we're experiencing. When I first read about the word surrender, it was in Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. Immediately I had a negative reaction to it. I said, I'm not surrendering. I'm not giving up. You know, I'm a fighter. However, often the best that we can do, you know, quote unquote, fight with or deal with painful or even destructive emotions, as the Tibetans would describe them, is to surrender to them and to simply experience. Now, how do we do that? One way is to write about it. You know, there's a lot of work, and also a lot of work with cancer patients as the subjects of the study, on the importance of keeping a journal. And the journal can take many shapes and forms. You know, you can use the prompt of, you know, just share, open up, write about whatever is on your mind and on your heart. Just open up. And that has great value. Then there is also journaling that focuses on the positive. You know, this is research that was done with cancer patients, or with people who experience traumas. You know, write about the benefits of what you're going through. Now, there's a very important distinction to make it. So when I write about the benefits of, you know, a cancer diagnosis, or the benefits of a traumatic experience, it's not saying I'm so glad I got it. Far from it. But what it is saying is, given that I got it, it's here. Can I find any benefits? And of course, when people write about it, they would write about, you know, for example, I'm closer with my family now, or I'm more appreciative of life, or I'm stronger than I thought I was. And writing about these indirect benefits has been shown, in some cases, not for all, and therefore, you know, we all need to figure out whether it is the right thing for us or not. But it has been shown to help many people. And I want to say something here more generally. You know, when I was growing up, I would hear this phrase over and over again, which was, things happen for the best.
Right, because you were playing squash and you hurt yourself. And that's what
Yeah, I played squash and I hurt myself, and I was, you know, unhappy, and then things went well, and then they didn't go well. But I would always hear that sentence, things happen for the best. And I must say, I never connected to that. It never resonated with me. What do you mean things happen for the best? I lost someone dear to me, it's for the best. COVID, thousands of people died, economies in shambles, for the best. Global warming, for the best? Really? What do you mean everything happens for the best? I don't believe that. But what I do believe, what I do know, is that while things don't necessarily happen for the best, we can choose to make the best of things that happen. We can choose to make the best of things that happen.
That's beautiful.
And the former is blind optimism. The latter is grounded optimism. And when I come up with a benefit to the very difficult situation that I'm going through, I'm not saying things happen for the best, but I'm saying it happened. Now, how can I make the best of it?
Yeah, I love that. And when I was diagnosed at 39 with BRCA1 that I inherited from my family, at that point I did a lot of research around why did Jews have BRCA1, BRCA2 in high numbers, and why do we have a 70% chance of getting like a cancer that's going to kill us, like ovarian or breast cancer, 70% chance. And I learned so much about our Jewish history and why we were persecuted, and what happened when there was a genetic bottleneck, and how all Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews are very similar. And I learned what happened, and I really started to understand, you know, why I had BRCA1, even though this was a ancient from a long time ago, and why did my father die, why did my grandmother die, you know. And I learned about the history of the Jews, and Amazing. So I'm
Mm.
grateful for that knowledge. And also being in recovery for 18 years and not having flour and sugar, so much embedded is acceptance of our disease and writing about it. So 100%.
Even thinking about it and writing about it, it's still okay to feel upset about it. And again, embracing any and all emotions. It's the foundation of health. In many ways, the first step to happiness is allowing in unhappiness.
So how do people find you? Because obviously I found you, but I'm associated with Harvard and Dr. Langer. But how do people find you who just found you?
Mhm. So I have a website, which is talbenshahar.com. And there I have links to my books, of course, as well as to the Happiness Studies Academy, which is where we have certificate programs. We have a whole master's degree in happiness studies. We have outreach programs for schools, for organizations. And what is it about? It's about bringing the science of well-being and making it accessible.
And my question for you, because you're a professor, you got your doctorate, you did your HBS, you did Dr. Langer, and what made you decide to do your own thing?
For me, a significant turning point in my career happened in 2015. I was on one of those transatlantic flights that never end, and I was exhausted. I still remember I was exhausted, but I was too uncomfortable to fall asleep. Just in my small seat. Those are the moments, actually. They don't happen for the best, but sometimes the best things happen during those moments. And a question came to mind. And the question was, how is it that there is a discipline, psychology, and another discipline, philosophy, and there is history, and there is biology, and medicine, and law, and education, and business, and you name it, but there is no field of study for happiness. Yeah, there is positive psychology, which is what I'd been doing, but that's just the psychology of happiness. What about what philosophers had to say about happiness? People like Aristotle, Lao Tzu, and Helen Keller. What about what economics has to say about happiness, or history, or literature, or film? Why, or theology? Why isn't there a field, or rather an interdisciplinary field of study that looks at the question of happiness? And I resolved on that flight to help create one. And my colleagues and I have been doing this for the past 8 years, and I suspect I'll be doing it for the next many more years. We created the Happiness Studies Academy. And
That's amazing, because you could have gone in so many different directions.
Very often our actions are taken as a result of hardship and difficulties and pain. What got me into this field of happiness is actually my own unhappiness. I started as a computer scientist. My father's an engineer. My mom is a microbiologist. I was always good at the sciences. That's what I studied or started studying as an undergrad. But it's at a certain point, I was doing well academically. I was doing well in sports. I was doing okay socially, and yet I was very, very unhappy. And it just didn't make sense to me, because I looked at my life from the outside and, I checked those boxes. But from the inside, it didn't feel that way. And that's when I switched majors and turned to psychology and philosophy. And that's when I met Professor Ellen Langer, who became a mentor, and Marty Seligman and Philip Stone. And I've been, on this path for the past 30 years. Still working at it.
Amazing. And the last question I have is, you did have the most popular course at Harvard, and there were like 700 people in that class. I mean, maybe more.
Yeah, 852, but who's counting? Yeah.
What was it like for you to teach a class of that magnitude on the Harvard campus? What was that like for you and your own ego and balancing the whole world?
The answer to this question for me is not an easy one. It's not, oh, it was amazing or it was terrible. Because on the one hand, it was amazing, very gratifying, of course, both to feel that I can touch the lives of so many students, and the fact that the media picked up on it, and it had an effect on the field of positive psychology. At the same time, it was also very challenging because I'm an introvert, I'm shy. I feel most comfortable when I'm in front of this computer writing, as opposed to in front of a large audience. So it was difficult, but over the years I've become much more comfortable in front of large audiences. I remember the first, my wife would endearingly call me a lobster. Why lobster? Because when I spoke to an audience, and again, it was always not when it was two people and we were just chatting. I loved that and thrived there. But when I was in front of anywhere above 5 people, when it became a lecture, I would always stand like this with my hands this way, like a lobster, because I didn't know what to do with my hands. I felt so uncomfortable and would often blush and sweat, and it was a real challenge for me to be in front of people. Social anxiety. But over the years, because I was and am driven by a very strong desire to share the science of happiness with others, because it's something I really believe in. I think it really does make a difference in people's lives.
And I must say, you were absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm sure you're brilliant now, but watching that was one of the most exhilarating things in my life.
I mean, it means a lot to me, and it's why I do what I do. I believe in this material. I know how much of a difference it made in my life. Sharing the research, evidence-based tools and techniques, spreading the science of happiness. That's my personal mission.
Thank you so much for talking to me today. And I know you're a busy person, so thank you so much for taking the time and talking to me.
Thank you, Vera, and I just want to thank you for your courage, and no less importantly, for encouraging others.
Thank you. And when I get back to Boston and I get back to the psychology department at Harvard, I will tell Dr. Langer that I saw you, and she's going to say she saw you because of me.
Yeah. Well, she's amazing.